Hello and welcome to KeyNote Expert Voices. This is the fourth episode of our podcast from KeyNote Women. I am Anna Kopp, I'm head of IT at Microsoft, and I have here with me today as guest Kamales Lardi, a fantastic woman who not only founded an award-winning company, she's CEO of Lardi and Partner Consulting, but she also won personal awards, a global award, top 10 global thought leaders and influencers in digital transformation, Thinkers 360. Isn't that amazing? She is expert across the business. She has 21 years of business experience advising multinational companies in various industries across the whole world. And she is also, and this is something that we have in common, she's on the advisory board at Durham University Business School. I'm at the advisory board on Munich Business School, something that I'm very passionate about, which ties our topic today, digital transformation, sustainability, and future talent together. So a little bit about me. I work for Microsoft, been at Microsoft for 17 years. I won the one or the other award as well as one of Germany's most inspiring women last year, for example. I studied international communication in Stockholm. I'm from Sweden and moved to Germany in 1992. And since then, I've been in the high-tech business, so 28 years, moving from roles in sales, services, operations, and now I am in IT. And I'm also the so-called regional office lead for Munich headquarters. So that means that I'm responsible for the whole office as a cultural workspace, and I do a lot of evangelization for new work. So with that, we have my guest here. Why don't we get straight into the conversation? And before we get really into the nitty-gritty here and so on, we're talking about digital transformation in the world we have today, economic growth and sustainability. Digital transformation, if you take any kind of PC magazine and you take a yellow marker and then you mark digital transformation 4.0, digitalization, you mark every single page since years, anything with 4.0. So I get asked from customers, is digital transformation just a buzzword? What is it? And this is my first question to you, Kamales. What's your story? Is what we're talking about today buzzwords? Is it the future? Is this where we're going? What's your view on that really philosophically?
First of all, let me say hello to everyone and to you, Anna. It's really fantastic to be here with you guys. And I'm in awe of your profile as well. So it's always amazing to have a conversation with another person who's in the same line and accomplished as much as well. So I'm really glad to be here today. I feel digital transformation has become kind of a buzzword, especially over the last year. And, I've been in this space for a while with companies across the globe, across industries, and transformation has actually been occurring for a while now. As technology adoption increased over time, we started to see a lot more applications across industries and companies starting to use these technologies for business and for interactions with their customers and so on. I mean, if we take a step back, digital transformation has been around for over 20 years, to be honest. In an industry like artificial intelligence, research and development in this industry has been around since 1950s, right? But it's only in the last 10 years or so where we've seen the applications truly explode across different industries. And this is because now we have certain elements in place like, unparalleled processing power, unlimited storage capacity, cloud storage, for example, as well as global connectivity. We have about 60% of the global community of people who connected online, and also things like the low cost of technology production. So all of these elements coming together and converging have created an environment that's just truly exploded and accelerated digital adoption across industries. And what I find really fascinating is the last 1 year, we've started to talk a lot about digital transformation during the coronavirus pandemic. Digital became kind of a focus point for many organizations that went into kind of physical lockdown, and they had to start focusing on their digital engagement and digital channels to continue business. But my true belief is, or the way I would define digital transformation is truly that it is a organization-wide end-to-end transformation that leverages technology to achieve competitive advantage or to achieve sustainable value, I would say. So these are some of the elements that I would like to see organizations have within their digital transformation strategy. It does address different areas of the company. So looking at how you engage with your customers, how you develop products and services and market them, as well as how you would engage with within your organization, optimize your operations and your processes, as well as how you would develop new revenue streams as you move further into the digital economy. So we start to look for a variety of elements, and digital transformation as an initiative can encompass quite a lot of topics. The focus does tend to be on technology implementation or engagement to customer channels. But I think we need to take a step back and look at kind of the bigger picture of transformation.
So you mentioned, and I'm getting curious here, I mean, first of all, knowing that you've been consulting across the whole world globally, and you mentioned the world and global a couple of times there. Do you see, and this is one of the conversations I have a lot, do you see differences in the major areas of the world from Asia Pacific, America, and Europe? For example, you mentioned AI. I had a lot of conversations lately around that because new EU regulations are coming out, and they keep saying Germany's behind, and the rest of the world is so much further. So how do you think about looking at the world and the global? Are we at different stages in this digital transformation? Saying it's been going on for a long time. What's your gut feeling, and what have you seen when you've spoken to industries and customers?
I think that's a great question. What I've observed on the ground, because I've worked across Asia, Africa, in quite a lot in Europe as well. I've started working a little bit more with the North American region and Middle East as well. And I think what I've noticed is the scale of transformation, the scale of technology adoption, accessibility to the kind of technology elements, right? So connectivity, mobile devices and things like that. Those elements are different across the globe. And these elements then drive how quickly transformation can occur within those different regions. So if we talk about Europe has about 96%, on average above 90% penetration rate for internet connectivity. And in Switzerland, for example, we have about 96% penetration rate for mobile devices. So we have people, almost everyone has a smartphone or a mobile device. Whereas if you compare that to the African region, on average, across Africa, you have about 29% internet connectivity or internet penetration rate. So this is a significant difference. There are some countries in Africa and some parts that have less than 5% connectivity. And so this digital divide, I would say, drives a lot of what implementations are being executed on the ground within organizations. So in some parts of Europe, where we have much more access to technology and connectivity, we're seeing implementation of more mature initiatives. So AI applications in management decision-making, for example, or tracking of customer sentiments and behavior and those types of elements. Whereas in Africa, we're seeing the implementations a different level or different digital maturity. So what we're seeing there are fintech. So focusing on getting the unbanked people access to financial services through mobile devices, for example, or upskilling on digital and coding knowledge. So this is kind of a new factor that's been created, particularly over the last 1 year, where lots of people who have lost their jobs started turning towards freelancing. And if you have access to a mobile device, you can start freelancing as a delivery person, or you can start even freelancing as a coder because you can code on your phone or through your phone. So these are creating new opportunities in that region. And I think it's quite exciting to see the differences that are happening. For me personally, it's exciting because I get to meet people from different areas with different perspectives. And it does open up my mind as well towards the possibilities of technology.
And it's a fascinating small fact here. I'm calling in today from Sweden. Out on the countryside, I have glass fiber. There's nothing around, just woods. And Sweden has very high connectivity, which is kind of nice, in the middle of nowhere. Whereas in Germany, interestingly, they have, I think it's 82% connectivity penetration, because there's still so much countryside and an older population. And I've been working a lot around that, because for me, and this is like leading into the next question and what I kind of heard you start saying, the importance of digital transformation for economic growth, not just for companies getting larger, but for areas that are still not where the developed world are. But how do you feel about that leading to equality, maybe even women and men and so on? Because being able to start your own little business by having a bank account leads to higher equality and, of course, fosters that economic growth. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, this is a topic that I'm very passionate about, and it excites me extremely, because I think this area creates opportunities for a lot of people. There are about 1.7 billion people in the world who are unbanked, basically, who don't have access to financial services. And you'd be surprised, many of them actually live in the US, for example, which is a region that you think would be a developed country where they would have access to financial services. And you have about 4.2 billion people who live under authoritarian regimes, right? So these are countries that they have control over their citizens, they utilize the financial system to control and to limit activities within their countries. And so here we see technology being able to really create opportunities and create not just economic growth, but equality across the board, and to kind of break up certain structures that are limiting us as a society. And so I find this quite exciting. I think blockchain is one area that I've been involved in for quite a few years now, particularly in supply chain management and agriculture development. And so my company actually built a solution for the Malaysian Palm Oil Government, or Malaysian Palm Oil Council. And it's a traceability solution that helps provide traceability or origin source for palm oil right down to specific individual trees. And this is something I've been working on for many years. And at the moment, we are in communication with WWF to potentially use that system at a wider level. And so when I started working on this project, I went in with quite a small perspective of what this could be. And as you start dealing with people on the ground, people who run plantations, the farmers and the families that work as harvesters, you start to realize that they are living in a situation where a lot of these technology developments are not existent to them. This is not something that they would even concern themselves about, because they are busy trying to make a living, make ends meet, and just get their kids to school so they can live a better life. And so when I look at technology as a solution for economic growth, it's not about the technology itself. I think it's about creating that value proposition for the market. What can technology enable? What's that use case behind it? And how can we utilize these technologies for a better world? So I'm quite excited to see some of these initiatives come out as well. I think another big topic or big area that we've seen during the coronavirus pandemic is the use of AI systems as well as virtual and augmented reality for medical technologies. So to provide patients access to healthcare and to basically healthcare professionals via remote healthcare services. And I think this is a topic that has boomed quite a bit during the pandemic, and I'm quite excited to see that come out as well.
So blockchain, it's one of those, another buzzword where a lot of people don't even really understand what it is. And I think it's one of the key things for sustainability in the future. You just said wider application. So what areas could you see this work in? Let's touch on that before we go into AI and sustainability.
Oh, sure. Blockchain for me is applicable across pretty much every industry. So I've seen really strong use cases today within supply chain management, within financial services. We're also seeing it in education institutions, for example, the certification of the education system. So to create more credibility around who's getting educated and what they're achieving within those education systems and what certifications are put out there. We're seeing it as well in the healthcare systems. So one great use case that I've seen in Switzerland as well is around tokenization of your medical data. So to allow people to take back control of their medical data and allow them to share it wherever and whenever they need to. So, in the past, if you go into a hospital in a foreign country, your medical history is located with your doctor in your home country somewhere else. And that could be in a physical copy or it could be in a digital copy, but that electronic data exchange becomes very difficult. Whereas today we have, with blockchain technology, the capability to hold all of this information within your mobile phone and in a secure way that you're allowed to share it when and how you need to with another person. It could be a medical professional or it could be a pharmacy and so on. These kinds of use cases I don't think we've seen in the past, and previous technologies didn't allow us this level of flexibility and security, as well as transparency and traceability. So this is, I think, for me, the exciting part about blockchain application.
Now, it's right now in the world we're living in, it's one of the key things that are being discussed right now is with the vaccines in the pandemic and how to prove that. How can we travel again? I heard there are people traveling over the borders to Poland and Czech Republic here in Europe just to get fake vaccine IDs. which, okay, so I can travel, but then I can still get sick, which is how I sometimes wonder what people are thinking. But this is truly opening up the world for everyone, isn't it?
It is opening up the world, and I think it does create situations where you would question, authenticity and validity. And the example you just mentioned, where people are crossing borders to get vaccines, we had some cases as well where people tried to dress up as older people to get vaccines first, and so on, with fake IDs. And it's comical. It is comical, but fear and uncertainty makes people do things that sometimes we don't understand as well. It drives people towards certain directions. But with the technology that we have available to us, it does, value system in our society exists. We have this spectrum of ethics and, doing things that are right, doing things that are good, right down to malicious activities and, people who are doing things just for the money or just to survive. This is our society as a whole. And we accept this society as is. We need the good and the bad together. But what technology does, it gives us the opportunity to kind of create transparency across the board in some of these areas. And it enables us to better manage the bad in our society and improve or exponentially share the good. And I think this is where, for me, economic growth and the sustainable value of technology comes. It allows us this opportunity to kind of create at scale good things, right, which we never were able to do before, and at scale, at low costs, and allow a lot of people across the globe to gain access and to benefit from these things. And so for me, I think that when we talk about sustainability, a big part of technology application comes down to that.
We mentioned AI before, and in the sense of sustainability. I mean, we have seen at Microsoft, we won some awards as well for using artificial intelligence for different things, like, for example, forestation. And it's also one of those key technologies to help with sustainability. It's something that you've been looking into a bit too on top. So what are the applications you've seen that fascinated you the most that you would like to tell us about?
So one of the things that I found really fascinating and I'm following very closely is a company called Soul Machines that produces AI-based virtual people, right? Virtual presences or avatars. And this has been applied quite successfully in the medical industry or healthcare industry, but also in financial services. So there's a bank in the Middle East called ABC Bank that has hired their first digital employee. And this is basically, it would look just like us on the screen, right? So a person's face that's communicating with you in natural language and interacting. It's actually not a real person. And I found this quite fascinating. The same use case is being applied in healthcare, where there are people who across the globe who are not able to physically go to a healthcare facility, or are not able to visit as often, or would not have the financial capabilities to admit themselves to a hospital and to get the full benefits of that. And so this type of technology allows for these people to, via the internet, gain access to a medical professional that looks semi-real or mostly real, and have this communication with them. It's helped with Alzheimer's, with dementia, with people who have autism. And so it's quite a massive application. So this is one area that I found quite interesting. Another one also in healthcare is there's been a significant increase over the last year during the pandemic with virtual surgeries as well. So the combination of using AI systems with virtual or augmented reality to allow people in doctors in remote areas to conduct virtual surgeries with the support of international surgeons as well, through, they're kind of doing the surgery in their location and the machinery is doing the action on site. So this is I think quite fascinating and interesting. It reduces the cost of medical care, and surgeries in some regions can be very expensive, and it makes it more accessible to people in developing countries as well. And they get some of the best care in the world through these systems. So I find these applications really exciting. What I see on the ground with many companies, though, they tend to focus more on AI for data processing or information analysis, for decision making. There's a lot of focus on things like chatbots and AI systems around. Most of the applications I'm seeing is around data management or data processing. And so within organizations, I think there's still, the other element is around robotics process automation that's coming in quite a bit as well. But these are kind of the things I'm seeing on the ground with companies.
Being at Microsoft, I have actually had the luck several times to try out the augmented reality. We have in our office, we have a holodeck, and we have the HoloLens.
Oh, cool.
I did not perform surgery on anyone, don't worry. But it is, I mean, it's so easy and it's so fascinating to just have that. And then, if you're just at home and you need to repair something and you call in a specialist from somewhere, I mean, the money you save as a person there is, you don't have to pay for the travel or anything. You do the work yourself and then on to the next one. And the combination would probably be fascinating at some point when a bot or a virtual person on the other side helps you through things like that, when it's a standard item that you have in your household, like a washing machine or something. So having tried that out myself, I know exactly what you're saying there, and the applications are really, really broad. It does cost
I'm actually a little envious of you because I don't have access to the HoloLens. So I think that's really cool. I have a Oculus Go at home.
Oh yeah, I have Oculus Quest. And nice. I enjoy it a lot. It's so much fun with the virtual reality. Gaming and watching films and other things. It's a new world opening up there for sure, isn't it?
Definitely. Yeah. We should meet up in VR once.
You come to me and we'll do HoloLens together.
Sure.
So here comes a curveball. I would like to talk a little bit about cryptocurrency when we're talking about blockchain, because there was, if you heard last week, Elon Musk said Tesla will not accept cryptocurrency, if I remember correctly, as payment, and stocks went down. And here comes the sustainability question as well, because that's one of the, with the big farms of farming cryptocurrency are, pretty much eating up a lot of resources. Have you thought about that? What's your view?
Oh, this is a topic that's very near and dear to me. So I'm a crypto enthusiast. I'm not a enthusiast across the board, because I don't think all cryptocurrencies have the value that they do. But I think that there's a place in society for cryptocurrencies. And firstly, I'd like to say, a lot of this, just like the stock markets, a lot of the cryptocurrency value is based on sentiment and perspectives. So it's based on market sentiment, which is why it fluctuates when someone like Elon Musk makes a comment like that. Or if China cracks down, this happened this week as well, they basically said they're going to crack down on cryptocurrency ownership. And this sent the world into a reel. And I think, individuals and these types of things should not have as much power over the whole industry or landscape. But that's a separate topic, I would say. Cryptocurrencies in themselves, particularly if we talk about Bitcoin, I think if we do a proper analysis and research around the electricity consumption in the industry, we will find that there's a lot of misconceptions around this, right? So there's this huge misconception that Bitcoin farms, mostly located in China, and they are massive guzzlers of electricity, and it's a huge impact on the climate and so on. But there was actually a recent study or research that was conducted. I can't remember the company's name, but I can definitely send you the information. It's quite interesting to read. This was a research that did a comparative study of Bitcoin electricity consumption against the banking industry, global banking industry, and the gold mining industry. And Bitcoin actually has less than half the consumption of the banking industry, which is very interesting. So they did a comparison against ATM systems used around the world, data processing and data warehousing. I mean, data warehousing is a massive consumer of electricity, and it does emit quite a lot of negative things within the climate, the environment. And so these elements, they did kind of a comparative study of the three industries and found that comparatively, Bitcoin doesn't use as much electricity as the other two industries. And it has a place in the world, right? So we question whether, do we need virtual currencies? We have a strong financial global system in place. There is a place for it. Now, if you think about, I mentioned earlier, 4.2 billion people are living under this authoritarian regime across the world. Bitcoin has played, specifically Bitcoin, not all cryptocurrencies, but Bitcoin has played a huge role in supporting these people within these regimes. So we had female activists or feminist activists in Nigeria who were living under oppression, who actually utilized tens of thousands of dollars donated via Bitcoin to support protests and to buy gas masks during their protest, because they were receiving quite a lot of violent reactions from the authorities. We had, simple example, Alexei Navalny, for example. he's funded his entire opposition operation through Bitcoin donations, simply because the entire financial services in Russia is managed by Putin. I know some of these facts might be controversial or provocative, but these are facts. These are, they're out there. We have Belarusian activists as well who have funded worker strikes or mining worker strikes through Bitcoin. And so we do see these opportunities being created to break certain structures or break certain boundaries that were set, and the boundaries may be positive or negative, but we can break those boundaries. So I think we need to kind of assess, there's definitely an opportunity to improve on the sustainability element around the cryptocurrency mining and development. But on the other hand, the benefit is there as well. And so we need to kind of have a balanced view of the industry. You can see that I'm really excited about this.
Yes, and this takes me to another couple of questions here, and I want to touch on before we get to an end here. First of all, let's talk a little bit about regulations, as I'm very involved right now in the regulations in pretty much giving feedback to law drafts that are going to be handed into the European Union, regulating government offices and regulating AI, what is allowed, and the same on blockchain and all that. Because if the financial and the capitalism aspect overtakes, and we don't have the boundaries of regulations and ethics, that's when sustainability and equality for people usually suffers. What are your thoughts on regulations?
So I think that the regulatory aspect plays a vital role in the future development of these emerging technologies and the impact it could have in society. I've also had board positions, within associations that help to drive some of these technologies nationwide here in Switzerland. And what I've noticed is it's important. There are a couple of elements. Who are the people involved in creating those regulations is really important. You need to have a diverse group of people, diversity of thought, diversity of background, diversity of knowledge. You have to have this group of people involved who can bring in different perspectives, not just ensure that the regulatory questions being raised or the points being defined are, encompassing a range of different topics that are important to the technologies, but also making sure that we don't skew our regulatory boundaries towards a certain direction. So I think that kind of fairness is really important within the regulatory space. The second element is really having people who have the knowledge of these technologies involved in that. So making sure that, when we talk about blockchain, when we talk about AI is a very old field. As I said, it's been around since the 1950s, but it is a space that is very, very broad, right? So you can deep dive into specific areas, or you can have a broad view at a high level, but you need to have people who truly understand what does this, if you're creating a national AI regulation or something to that effect, or a national AI strategy, how is this going to impact every aspect of it? Is it going to be, are you addressing every aspect that's important? And we're seeing that even organizations that tend to be specialists in some of these topics don't address all the points, right? So if we talk about Google or any other of the big tech companies, are they addressing diversity within their technology implementations? That is still something that, it's a big question mark, and it's very controversial in the market at the moment. So I think having the right people involved, having the people with the right knowledge, addressing the range of topics within those technologies is going to be very, very critical. And the regulatory environment will dictate how much of these technologies can be implemented in the future. So without proper regulation around blockchain application, or even around the cryptocurrencies or recent NFTs and all of these different areas, it's going to be very, very questionable and difficult when it starts to scale, and it will start to scale. So we need to have this kind of corporate startups and regulators or governments working closely together, making sure that we're able to define and build up these technology areas.
Here's a tip, something I just watched last week. There's a film called Coded Bias. If you haven't seen it yet, it's on Netflix now, and fascinating. A couple of things where AI, for example, is in place and not ethically managed at all. For example, in the justice system in the US, also in China with the social scoring and so on, and the bias, for example, in face recognition that it's very clearly, it recognizes most white males, white females less, and then dark-skinned people even less. So there's a clear bias there, which was really fascinating, because in the end, it is a data science topic. And without data and machine learning and data to train the AI on, there's no AI. And this is something where we shouldn't be upset about the AI, but we should be upset that it actually manages to reflect the world we are living in so well, because to be very honest, that is what we have currently today. Yeah, that's definitely a tip. It's 1.5 hours.
You hit the nail on the head right there, Anna. That's exactly the point, right? And I think if there's one message that we can put out during this podcast, it would be technology is an enabler, right? At the end of the day, a lot of what we build is reflecting back to us what is out there in the real world. So it's not about AI taking over the world or putting us out of jobs or, becoming evil, which sometimes, you do hear these types of points of view that are coming from a fear-based environment. But AI systems are pretty much systems that you feed in data and it produces a result based on the data you feed in. So if there's a bias in the system, it's because you've fed it biased data. And if the reason there is bias in the data is because there's bias in society, in the data that's being collected out there in the real world. And so I think it does shine a light, and it pushes us towards a direction where we need to address what's out there and what's in our world first. And that's going to help kind of drive the changes across the board and into the technology developments as well. But really, thank you for letting me know this movie. I've been trying to set up, you can do a virtual viewing with a group of people. I've been trying to set that up, but if it's on Netflix, I'm so on it. I'll watch that.
Yeah, definitely. So I would say, let's come to a conclusion here. We've looked at a lot of things. And with this thought, I would like to maybe end with looking into the future, digital transformation, everything we talked about today, and sustainability. Where are we going in the future? How can we use this to be more sustainable? What are you personally doing? Any final thoughts here for us?
I think from a personal level, what I am doing is making sure that whatever we build, whatever we communicate, and whatever we kind of support companies with has a view on sustainability. A big piece of what I'm working on with agriculture traceability for blockchain as well. It's potentially going to have a transformative impact in the agriculture market. So that's something I'm quite proud and excited about as well. And so whenever we look at technology development, we try to see what's the best way to implement that. And on a personal level as well, for many people, I think one advice I would give is kind of upskill yourself and take an interest, learn a little bit more about the technology, because I think there is an opportunity to get involved. There's opportunities to make an impact for sustainability and for a wider value across the globe. And I think in terms of what's for the future, there's going to be I'm very excited about the future. There's going to be a huge number of implementations across industries. And I'm seeing these, the various technologies. For me personally, one of the most exciting elements would be the convergence of the different technologies. Blockchain creating transparency in data, while you combine that with AI systems that can manipulate and process data very quickly and create insights out of that. And if you combine the technologies, these two technologies with Internet of Things or AI sensors, you create a huge number of opportunities, possibilities, and use cases. So this is something I'm very excited about.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I agree with you. I'm excited about the future too. As I work for a company, it's good fun to be at Microsoft, who has pledged to be not only carbon neutral by 2025, but moving into 2030, give back what we have taken over the years, which is, for me, in my daily work, thinking about these things. One example is that most countries at Microsoft are now hiring a sustainability officer. Just going that thought and thinking, we as a company need to take accountability, and we need to invest in resources that really know something about this and looking at it. That's my view of being happy where I am and working for the company I do, and having this as one of the top of mind topics that we're looking at. So yeah, thank you, Kamales. So with that, I think we're at the end now. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you as well, Anna. It was a pleasure.
I wish we could go on. We could do this for hours. Maybe
for sure.
Series about different topics. So for the conclusion, this episode, I would like to say a few words about KeyNote Women as well. Visit the homepage, keynotewomen.com. This is an organization we are members of, where you can book female speakers and that have experts in vast areas. Very recommendable. This has been fun. So with that, we're closing the call. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.